Hello, good afternoon. I said I was going to talk some more today, and I really wasn't sure what I was going to talk about. Um, a lot of questions come around about Tantra, but I'm still here teaching Ashtanga, so a lot of questions are coming up around Ashtanga. I don't feel Ashtanga and Tantra are mutually exclusive things, though. Hatha Yoga is a system that was created underneath tantric principles by um, the Nats, not like Matsyendra Nath, Gorakhnath. Nat means God, but these are people who worship God. They're pretty famous if you know anything about yoga. They're in the guru lineage of almost everything because Hatha Yoga, which Ashtanga Yoga is a one path of Hatha Yoga. They they created it, so um, most people have heard of them. Even though they're very separate and very different, a lot of times Hatha Yogis are not tantric people. A lot of times Hatha Yogis who become tantric people do so because of going to India and having different experiences. One of the biggest principles that I like to think about when I'm teaching Ashtanga, and I'm going to talk a little bit more with the slant toward Ashtanga. Um, the alignment of Ashtanga Yoga comes from things that are taught very much in Tantric Shastra. Our alignment, everyone thinks your body is supposed to be held in space in a certain manner, meaning your bones should be lined up like this, your hands should be spread like this, you should have the weight evenly across all four corners of your hands, and all this stuff and that stuff. Now, those things can be very helpful for people who have problems. If someone's not having any problem, then you can leave them alone and let them do what they need to do, unless you think it's going to structurally hurt them later. I typically don't bother with alignment unless someone has trouble with physical ailments in their body during the practice or due to wrong holding themselves incorrectly in something. But in Ashtanga Yoga, our alignment comes from the breath first. Patabi was known for saying, "This is a breathing system, all the rest is a circus." The breath first, the bandha second, and the drishti third. And I have talked about this in another video also. I know a lot of people have different, not different, yeah, varying opinions on how the breath is to be done. Breathing with sound is the general idea of how to do it. Not ujjayi breathing, because ujjayi breathing you close off your throat, and that's a technique used for pranayama in the Ashtanga pranayama sequence and in several other different systems. The pranayama uses ujjayi breathing, and it's often very done while sitting very still, not while moving. In the free breathing system that we do with sound, your throat is opened up, and then the prana can move more fully. The bandhas, like I had a bad back for my whole life until I started yoga, and then it got a little worse when I started, but it was feeling better after each practice, so I kept going, and I went to the chiropractor, and I kind of figured it out. Kino had done some workshops on Mula Bandha, and I did one of them twice at two different places. And with that and the knowledge I already had about Mula Bandha from a couple of the book Mula Bandha, the Master Key, and just from doing the practice before, and from Nancy. Nancy's big thing was Uddiyana Bandha, and she believed if you had Uddiyana just right, not stiff, but just sucked up, and it supported your back, but it also automatically made Mula Bandha work. You didn't have to do Mula Bandha. You had to allow Mula Bandha to happen from doing Uddiyana Bandha. That was kind of the way she taught everything. To me, I don't know how she taught to everyone. I think it's pretty across the board. So I took the stuff I learned from Kino's system, which Kino's workshops, which approached it from a very physical format. And if you had her third series DVD, and yes, I know I'm dating myself, but DVDs were a big part of my life for a very long time. VHS was even a bigger part because I'm in my 50s. But I had her third series DVD. There was a second disc in that that had a talk about Mula Bandha, and she talked you through doing it, and it was really good. And it was kind of the same thing she did in her workshops, but in the workshops it was personalized more to the people who were there. So I really enjoyed the workshops. But to me, it was so much physical. It was like this. And then you think about people like Richard Freeman, who is a very well respected older Ashtangi, uh, who talks about Mula Bandha as a lifting, not even a physical lifting up, but a sucking up of the prana. Has all to do with the energy, which is hard for a lot of people to equate in their brain to reality, because everyone has a different view on what reality is. Between those two things and the stuff I learned from the Mula Bandha, the Master Key book, and all of this stuff I had learned just from doing practice over the quite a few years before that, I put together my own way of approaching Mula Bandha and how to teach it, and then connecting the breath to it, so that you're making sure that you're not letting loose of the bandhas while you're focusing on the breath. And then at the last, you put in the drishti, because the drishti takes the external focus and pulls it back inward into the inner body. And those three things are the foundation of our practice. And if you watch someone who's doing them correctly, say, down dog is a great pose because you can kind of tell lots of things from downward facing dog. Adho Mukha Svanasana. So if someone's doing all these things correctly, down dog is where you can kind of see that they're doing too much, too little. They're squeezing their muscles. They're doing all this stuff. Everything's tight. You want it to be a loose posture. And it should, sorry, there's a little bug. It's nice out so my windows are open. And there's a little bug flying around my face. Everyone thinks you have to do all these things, and really you have to do these three things. Breath bandhas and drishti. And then the internal awareness will allow everything to happen. You don't have to do yoga. You have to do these three things while you're working through your asana practice, and allow the yoga to happen from the effect of these three things. And the idea of Mula Bandha, the idea of Muladhara chakra, the chakra system, the energetic centers in the body, those all come from the Tantras. They are literally talked about only there. They're not talked about in the Vedic texts. So it's a very tantric system to me, especially Ashtanga, because they're so dynamic with so much movement. The breath creates such a energy flow going through your body. It's undeniable to me that it's a tantric system. So I like to teach it as a tantric system. I don't know that the yoga in the way that they are teaching it in Mysore is often thought of that way. But I am a tantrika, so I can only see it that way, because tantra is the ideology, I guess. Ideology might not be the wrong word, but may not be the right word. Philosophy could be part of it. Tantra could be many things, but Tantra isn't necessarily how people want it presented because of the way the West thinks of Tantra. I'm not necessarily encouraged to worry about how the West thinks of Tantra, how the West thinks of yoga, because very much they have taken it and made it their own thing, and are not following any guidelines that come from the East in general, not in all ways. I think Ashtanga is one of the few that still follows the way things are done in the way it's taught in India. But then if you're in Mysore, where Ashtanga originated, it is a whole lot of teachers, Indian teachers, who are now teaching it in a very Western way because that's what's popular. And because they want the Yoga Alliance 200-hour certification, which has nothing to do at all with your yoga practice. It has to do with certain guidelines that were set up for the United States that have nothing to do with India. So, the US is making money off of India. And other countries are also using the same thing. So the U.S. is making a lot of money. The U.S. organization is making a lot of money off of these other countries who are paying for this title that really has no bearing on life at all. It was a system. The Yoga Alliance was set up because in the late 90s, when the government realized yoga was becoming a big thing, that they were wanting to maybe create an organization to take over the guidelines so they could make some money off of creating certifications and creating stipulations of how to do that. So someone put together, and Georg Feuerstein, which most people will say George Feuerstein. If you ever read any of his books, he was one of the ones who got together really quickly to have this done so that the government couldn't get their hands on yoga. So it was, I think, created with the right intention by people who were very much in love with the Eastern philosophy of yoga and all of the things. And he wrote some amazing books that have helped a lot of people with yoga, with tantra, with all kinds of stuff. But I think that it's not used in that way anymore. It's used now as a money-making item. And that's okay, because we live in a society that requires money to be made, but it also has started affecting the way things are done in India. Even if you go to somewhere like Rishikesh, a friend of mine was going to go there to take a couple weeks of classes, and they talked him into, no, you have to do this teacher training to take the classes. So that means you have to come for 3 weeks, or almost 4 weeks, so like a month, do the teacher training. You'll pay this much. We don't really want to just sell the classes. The classes are for the teacher trainees. And then, like, this guy is a great guy, but he didn't have any business being certified as a yoga teacher. The good thing with, like, his example is, now, because of that, and because of knowing me and how I poo-poo a lot of these things, he's gone in deeper searches of what yoga really means to himself and to the people around him. And he's not teaching it publicly. He's just used it for his own edification. So that's great. I think that's great. And if that happens from a teacher training, I think that can be an okay thing. So I don't know. I didn't really have a place I was going with this video. I just have a lot of things pent up inside and have been wanting to let them out, and they're still not coming out. So it feels like I'm going to have more to say, but I have to formulate what's going on in my head a little bit more before, like I did in the last videos. I had kind of a theme for each talk, and I don't really have a theme right now. I was in France for about 8 days, and I had a very busy time there because the yoga there was same. It was Ashtanga yoga, but their approach to it was very different. So I had a lot of work to do. And when I came back, I don't know. I just felt a little lost. So my brain hasn't come together with some things that I should talk about. So I'm just rambling yet again. And I call all of these rambling because what I do is I think of the main thing in my frontal lobe. It's like, okay, I need to talk about this, and I have ideas about it, and then I just let it come out organically the way it wants to come out, which is kind of what rambling is. I'm not necessarily a writer down, scheduler, planner. I like to learn all the rules, put it all inside, and then kind of let it come out the way it wants to come out. So have a good day, and I will talk to you again soon. Ciao.